After a 2-year-long investigation, authorities say 12 people have been charged for selling in Roxbury. All but one of those men charged in this investigation, authorities say, are in the Orchard Park Trailblazers or Vine Forest Street gangs.
And it was good.
31 members and associates of Dorchester-based NOB Street Gang are now facing federal charges. Some were arrested this morning during raids in various parts of the state, including this scene in Attleboro. Others were already in custody for other offenses.
It began in the pre-dawn hours, about 300 investigators making raids in communities throughout Greater Boston. The target, the Boston-based Mozart Street Gang. Prosecutors say Operation Wolfgang dismantled a violent drug trafficking organization at the top of the supply chain.
Prosecutors are filing federal charges against more than 40 alleged gang members and their associates. Attorney says that the suspects are all part of the Heath Street gang, which has been operating for years near the Mildred C. Haley apartments in Jamaica Plain.
Boston is usually remembered as the cradle of liberty, the city of the American Revolution, brick-lined Freedom Trail, and universities that draw students from around the world. It's the birthplace or home of icons like Malcolm X, New Edition, Donna Summer, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, and Paul Pierce, a place known for championships, culture, and history long before it was known for gang indictments and RICO cases. But behind the brownstones of the South End, the triple-deckers of Dorchester and Roxbury, and the new luxury towers dotting the skyline, another Boston has been fighting for survival. In this hidden city, corners like Lenox Street, Hendry Street, Woodward Avenue, Heath Street, Orchard Park, Columbia Point, and the blocks claimed by NOB or Mozart Street crews have turned into battlegrounds. Open-air drug markets, retaliatory shootings, and cartel-linked drug pipelines have collided with everyday life: kids walking to school, parents riding the bus, elders sitting on their porches. This documentary goes inside that shadow war.
It began in the pre-dawn hours, about 300 investigators making raids in communities throughout Greater Boston. The target, the Boston-based Mozart Street Gang. Prosecutors say Operation Wolfgang dismantled a violent drug trafficking organization at the top of the supply chain. And it's interesting to note that not all of these suspects are men. They include a 26-year-old woman from Hyde Park with no criminal record who investigators believe is responsible for bringing large quantities of heroin into the United States from the Dominican Republic.
In December 2016, Operation Wolfgang, a joint FBI, Boston Police, and Suffolk DA investigation took down a major Boston-based drug trafficking ring with ties to a violent gang feud. The probe initially focused on Johan Gomez, believed to be a member of the Mozart Street Gang in Jamaica Plain. The Mozart Street Gang had a long-running bloody rivalry with the nearby Boylston Street Gang, fueling numerous shootings and homicides in the late 2000s. Through court-authorized wiretaps on 17 phones, investigators tracked Gomez's drug activities starting in fall 2015 and soon identified a larger narcotics supply network spanning eastern Massachusetts. Gomez led them to Elizabeth La Diabla Comas of Hyde Park, an alleged high-level importer who was responsible for smuggling large quantities of H from the Dominican Republic. Comas, notably, had no prior criminal record and thus flew under the radar until the wiretap operation exposed her role as a supplier. On December 15, 2016, authorities executed sweeping raids in an operation whimsically code-named after Mozart that resulted in dozens of arrests across Boston and surrounding towns. The drug ring was tied to the Mozart Street Gang and had direct connections to Dominican and Mexican suppliers. It pumped large amounts of H and Fenty into Boston neighborhoods. Investigators seized about 5.5 kilograms, around 80,000 cash, and 10 firearms during the takedown. The gang's activities weren't limited to drugs. They were also believed to be responsible for shootings, armed robberies, and home invasions as far away as the suburbs, showing the gang's reach beyond city limits. In fact, during the wiretap period, Gomez and an associate allegedly attempted an armed home invasion/robbery of a rival dealer and Gomez was linked to planning other acts of violence to protect the enterprise.
31 members and associates of Dorchester-based NOB Street Gang are now facing federal charges. Some were arrested this morning during raids in various parts of the state, including this scene in Attleboro. Others were already in custody for other offenses.
The charging documents unsealed this morning summarize a litany of gang violence, from shootings and beatings to robberies, drug dealing, and prostitution.
Now, according to the criminal complaint, this group is connected to at least 3 separate cases dating back to 2017. And at least one gang member not only participated in a lot of these violent crimes, but later rapped about it too.
Another major case unfolded in 2019-2020 against a violent Boston street gang known as NOB, which stands for Norton Olney Berry Streets, a Dorchester-based alliance also nicknamed the Wendover Street Gang or Head Shop Mafia. NOB had become one of Boston's most feared gangs, linked to multiple shootings and homicides in the city and beyond. In June 2020, a federal grand jury indicted 31 members and associates of NOB on a sweeping racketeering RICO conspiracy and related charges. According to court records, NOB functioned as a classic violent enterprise. Its members engaged in deletions, attempted deletions, armed robberies, shootings, drug trafficking, trafficking, and illegal gun dealing. They terrorized rivals and even innocent bystanders. Notably, NOB members allegedly carried out multiple deletions in early 2020, including coordinated hits in Boston and Brockton in February 2020. Those deletions were part of an ongoing feud with the Cameron Street Gang, another Dorchester gang. In one grim statistic, prosecutors said that NOB's rivals were dropping like flies, with 3 rival gang members deleted in a span of months. In July 2019, NOB members were involved in a high-profile incident where they stole a vehicle, not realizing a 5-year-old girl was in the back seat. She was later safely abandoned in Randolph. But the incident underscored the gang's reckless endangerment of the public. NOB also peddled a wide array of drugs across Massachusetts and into New England states like Rhode Island, Maine, and Connecticut. When Boston police pulled over 2 NOB members in July 2019, they found a stash of Fenny pills and a 9 handgun that was later tied to a New Bedford shooting. The gang was tech-savvy as well. Members used rap music videos and social media to brag about shootings and taunt enemies, helping prosecutors link them to crimes. 2 aspiring rappers in the gang, Michael G. Frito Brandau and Kelvin 7981 Cal Barrows, became notorious for boasting about gang hits in their lyrics.
After a 2-year-long investigation, authorities say 12 people have been charged for selling crack cocaine in Roxbury.
The federal investigation was launched in an effort to improve the quality of life for the residents of Orchard Park. The focus of the investigation was on street-level drug dealers who used the development as their base, even though many did not even live there.
All but one of those men charged in this investigation, authorities say, are in the Orchard Park Trailblazers or Vine Forest Street gangs.
And it was good to see a dozen of them taken off and another dozen guns taken off the streets.
The investigation zeroing in on crime taking place in the Orchard Gardens housing development. Authorities say one suspect, Diamond Brito, a member of the Orchard Park Trailblazers gang, sold investigators a dozen guns and
12 men, including 11 alleged members or associates of the Orchard Park Trailblazers and Vine/Forest Street gangs, have been charged in connection with selling drugs in and around Roxbury's Orchard Gardens housing development. Today, federal, state, and local law enforcement officers arrested 8 of the defendants, who are accused of distributing within 1,000 feet of a school zone. Raul Williams, also known as Booby, a 26-year-old from Boston and a suspected member of the Orchard Park Trailblazers, was previously charged at the state level. Another individual, Jose Quinones, also known as Julio, a 24-year-old member of the same gang, had been charged with being an alien in possession of a firearm and distributing. He was later deported to the Dominican Republic. During an earlier phase of this ongoing investigation, another gang member, Diamond Brito, was sentenced to 8 years in prison after being charged with gun and drug offenses. Rito, identified as an Orchard Park trailblazer, sold investigators 12 firearms and various drugs. This investigation, spanning nearly 2 years, focused on the high levels of crime centered around the Orchard Park development, the largest public housing complex in Roxbury, which sits next to the Orchard Gardens K Pilot School. Much of the criminal activity is attributed to members and associates of the Orchard Park Trailblazers, who are involved in violent feuds with rival gangs across the city. These conflicts have contributed to increased violence in the area. According to court documents, 11 of the 12 defendants are affiliated with either the Orchard Park Trailblazers or the Vine Forest Street Gang. Between October 2015 and May 2017, 3 cooperating witnesses conducted 34 controlled drug purchases from the defendants in or near the housing development.
Dozens of members belonging to Boston's largest and most powerful gang have been arrested. Federal authorities said today members and associates of the Columbia Point Dogs were indicted on drug and gun charges. They say the gang started operating out of the Columbia Point housing project in the Dorchester section of Boston in the 1980s, eventually trafficking drugs from Boston up to Maine.
Which incidents are we talking about?
This operation didn't just dismantle a large-scale drug trafficking network. It focused on individuals who gang prosecutors believe are responsible for much violence in our city.
Over 500 federal, state, and local law enforcement officers carried out a series of arrests and executed more than 30 federal search warrants early this morning as part of a 2-year wiretap investigation known as Operation Rising Tide. This coordinated effort led to the unsealing of 6 federal indictments, charging 48 leaders, members, and associates of the Columbia Point Dogs, CPD, with drug trafficking and firearms offenses. According to court documents, the CPD, also referred to as the Point on the Streets, is recognized as Boston's largest and most influential gang. The organization began in the 1980s in the former Columbia Point housing development, now known as Harbor Point. Over the years, members of the gang expanded their drug trafficking operations throughout Boston and eventually extended their reach into Maine. Investigators allege that the CPD was responsible for distributing large quantities of drugs across Boston and Maine during the investigation. The CPD is also believed to have maintained its dominance in Boston's drug trade through a consistent pattern of violence and intimidation. Members of the gang have been linked to numerous shootings targeting rival gangs over the years. Most notably, within the last 18 months, the CPD has been engaged in a violent conflict with the Greenwood Street Posse and other gangs aligned with Greenwood. This gang war resulted in multiple shootings. During the investigation, law enforcement officers seized 14 firearms, some of which were intercepted after investigators, using court-authorized wiretaps, overheard conversations indicating an imminent attack.
Prosecutors are filing federal charges against more than 40 alleged gang members and their associates. Good afternoon. I'm Paula Eben. Now, the acting United States attorney says that the suspects are all part of the Heath Street gang, which has been operating for years near the Mildred C. Haley apartments in Jamaica Plain. Charges include racketeering conspiracy, drug offenses, firearms offenses, as well as $900,000 worth of COVID fraud and organized retail theft. During this morning's arrest, officers seized more than 60 weapons.
New this morning, 4 Mainers among a group of 41 people facing federal charges for being part of a violent gang in Boston. Amanda LaPointe of Ripley, Jacob Lyford of Milo, Michael St. Pierre out of Dedham, and Kayla Tasker of Dexter, all arrested earlier this week. They are accused of being part of what is known as the Heath Street gang. Members of the group.
Breaking news, the U.S. Attorney's Office is holding a news conference right now to announce that more than 40 alleged local gang members have been arrested. Let's listen in.
Court, charging over 40 individuals with racketeering conspiracy, drug offenses, firearms offenses, and financial crimes, including COVID fraud and brazen organized retail theft. The defendants charged today are members and associates of the Heath Street gang, which, as alleged in the court documents, has been operating for many years in and around the Mildred C. Haley apartments in Jamaica Plain. This morning, nearly 24 members and associates of the Heath Street gang were arrested, and several other individuals who are in state and federal custody have now been charged in federal court with new offenses.
Over 40 members and associates of the Heath Street gang in Boston were charged in federal court today with a wide range of crimes, including racketeering conspiracy, drug trafficking, firearms offenses, wire fraud, and financial frauds, such as COVID-related fraud. These charges come after a 2-year investigation into gang violence and criminal activities in Boston. According to court documents, the Heath Street gang operates primarily out of the Mildred C. Haley Apartments, formerly known as the Bromley Heath Housing Development, which is one of the largest public housing complexes in the greater Boston area. The gang, which formed in the 1980s, is believed to have over 150 members and has historically used violence to maintain its power, territory, and reputation. The gang is accused of engaging in numerous violent acts, including deletions, attempted deletions, and shootings, many of which targeted rival gang members from other Boston-based groups, particularly the Mission Hill Gang and the H-Block Gang. One notable incident occurred in October 2016 when a shooting aimed at rivals in Mission Hill territory resulted in a 9-year-old girl being severely injured. Additionally, a June 2021 deletion was allegedly committed by a juvenile member of the Heath Street Gang in Mission Hills territory. The Heath Street Gang is also accused of recruiting juveniles from the Mildred C. Haley Apartments to join their ranks and carry out criminal activities, including shootings. Prospective younger members were allegedly required to commit acts of violence as part of their initiation into the gang. These juveniles were sometimes featured in Heath Street Gang songs or music videos, which the gang used to assert their dominance, boast about violent acts, and threaten rival gangs. In several instances, gang members were associates of assaulted law enforcement officers while they were performing their duties. The gang is also accused of using the Mildred C. Haley Apartments as a hub for drug trafficking operations. Over several years, they allegedly built drug distribution networks extending across Massachusetts, Maine, and California. Heath Street members are known to use social media platforms to facilitate their drug sales. They use social media to advertise, negotiate, and arrange drug deals. In addition to their violent and drug-related activities, the Heath Street Gang is also implicated in various financial crimes. This includes an organized retail theft ring that has been stealing merchandise from stores across Massachusetts and New Hampshire since at least 2019. Gang members are also alleged to have engaged in widespread CARES Act loan fraud and unemployment fraud, exploiting financial relief programs during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Maria, the FBI...
On June 21, 2011, Boston police launched Operation Tanglewood, a warrant sweep targeting an open-air drug market around the Lenox Street housing development in the South End. The operation was sparked by residents' complaints that drug dealers had essentially taken over the area, brazenly conducting street-level sales and intimidating neighbors. Undercover officers made numerous buys, at one point trading a digital camera and a game console for a 20 bag of drugs, illustrating how boldly dealers operated. In the sweep, 21 alleged drug dealers were arrested in one day. Officials described the Lenox Street area as an open-air drug market that forced honest residents to walk a gauntlet of dealers whenever they left home. Boston Police Commissioner Edward Davis emphasized the timing. The first day of summer was intentional to get dealers out of circulation for the summer and reclaim the neighborhood. Suffolk County DA Daniel calmly said plainclothes officers could easily buy H and Coke on the street, showing how brazen these defendants had become. In January 2013, a massive interagency sweep known as Operation Concord targeted 2 warring street gangs in Dorchester's Bowdoin, Geneva area and the Roxbury Upham's Corner area. These were the Hendry Street Gang and Woodward Avenue Gang, whose turf feud had terrorized residents with gun violence and rampant drug dealing. The investigation began in mid-2011 and utilized wiretaps, controlled buys, and surveillance to map out the gang's operations. According to charging documents, Alexis Hidalgo of Dorchester, leader of the Hendry Street crew, and Jonathan Da Silva of Roxbury, leader of the Woodward of a crew, partnered to run a lucrative narcotics enterprise spanning Greater Boston. They trafficked various drugs, which they branded and sold for up to $5,200 per pound. Wiretap recordings captured Hidalgo joking about indictment risk. In one call, when a huge shipment was discussed, he quipped, "If they are listening, I sell weed, man." The investigation also revealed brazen violence. At one point in 2012, Da Silva allegedly ordered a hit on a rival in the lobby of a courthouse, forcing police to intervene covertly. Hidalgo, Da Silva, and 27 others were federally indicted on drug distribution, firearm, and RICO-related charges. Rather than face trial where they risked potential life sentences, The two kingpins ultimately pleaded guilty in 2015. Hidalgo agreed to a sentence of roughly 12-14 years in prison, and Da Silva to 10-14 years as part of their plea deals. Many lower-level co-defendants also pleaded out. For example, one associate who helped run the drug house received 6 years. By 2015, violent crime had resurged around the Lenox Street housing development, the same area targeted by Operation Tanglewood in 2011. In response, a joint task force of federal, state, and local law enforcement conducted a new investigation focusing on the Lenox Street Cardinals, an established gang based in the Lenox Street apartments. According to the Boston Regional Intelligence Center, the gang had about 100 active members and was at the epicenter of a surge in shootings and drug activity in the South End. Between 2012 and 2015, the Lenox Street area saw 30 shootings and over 75 shots fired reports, leaving residents in fear. Investigators even noted a YouTube rap music video posted in 2014, showing alleged gang members openly smoking marijuana in the neighborhood, which helped spark the probe. On March 24, 2016, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced a sweeping indictment of 27 individuals tied to the Lenox Street Cardinals and their associates. This included 19 defendants facing federal charges and 8 more facing state drug charges. Much of the evidence came from a cooperating witness who conducted dozens of controlled buys of drugs from gang members, transactions covertly captured on audio and video. Data-driven maps from BRIC were included in the case, visually showing a tight concentration of shootings, robberies, and drug arrests around the Lenox blocks. In early 2016, Boston was hit by a wave of brutal violence linked to MS-13 Mara Salvatrucha, a transnational gang with roots in El Salvador. After a 3-year FBI-led investigation, authorities moved to dismantle MS-13's Boston area click network. On January 29, 2016, federal prosecutors unsealed a blockbuster indictment charging 56 alleged MS-13 members and associates under RICO conspiracy, including numerous violent crimes. MS-13 in Massachusetts was described as extremely violent and very structured. Its core motto is Mata, Viola, Controla, Spanish for delete great, control, which leaders enforced as a way of life. The indictment accused MS-13 of 5 deletions in the Boston area over 2014-2015 and at least 14 attempted deletions, many involving teenagers attacked with knives, machetes, and even a metal bat. Notably, several East Boston high school students had been slain by MS-13 recruits as part of initiation rituals. To attain homeboy status full membership, MS-13 prospects were required to commit significant acts of violence, often deleting a rival gang member. The rivalry between MS-13 and the 18th Street Gang, another Central American gang, fueled much of the bloodshed. MS-13 leaders in El Salvador allegedly directed cliques in Massachusetts to be aggressive in deleting rivals. In one case, the East Coast leader Jose "Chucky" Martinez Castro of Virginia ordered more frequent deletions, and shortly after, a 16-year-old boy met his demise in East Boston. MS-13 also systematically recruited immigrant youth in local high schools to replenish its ranks. These Boston gang cases show more than just arrests. They map out a hidden war running through Lenox Street, Bowdoin, Geneva, Upham's Corner, Jamaica Plain, and Dorchester. Operations like Tanglewood, Concord, the Lenox Street Cardinals indictment, MS-13's RICO case, Wolfgang, and the NOB Takedown all ripped major crews off the streets, seized guns and drugs, and solved shootings that had families living in fear. But every takedown also leaves a vacuum. Old leaders get decades, new crews and young recruits line up to replace them. Boston's challenge now isn't just arresting the next generation, it's giving them a different path. Whether the city's future is defined by more indictments or more opportunity will decide if these neighborhoods stay battleground or become what they were always meant to be: communities that raise legends, not headlines.